Following the success of the Neo 65 and Neo 70, Neo Studios continues to innovate in the realm of custom mechanical keyboards with the introduction of the Neo 80. Pretty sick, right? This new edition aims to cater to a broader audience with its unique features and design choices. It features slim side bezels and a newly rounded top case chamfer, giving a softer, more approachable look. Neo Studios' choice to not put an F13 key was very curious, as it seems to be more of the popular choice nowadays, but I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I should mention it here just in case you do. The first eye-catching feature on the Neo 80 is the RGB orbit logo. Located under the navigational cluster, it is a subtle design choice to give this keyboard just a little bit more personality. I personally like how the RGB light is positioned slightly below the surface, and this helps it make it feel like it's not all up in your face. Now, in all honesty, 80% aren't really my steez, as I like the smaller compact boards, but this one's managed well with all its curves and chamfers, giving it a nice smooth side profile. The option to choose between a matching or contrasting bottom case with either a champagne bottom or a silver bottom adds a customizable dual tone vibe. If I had the choice, I would have asked for a contrasting bottom just so it breaks up the side profile a bit. I think the single tone kind of makes the side profile look a little too bulky for me. I favor more dynamic side profiles like the QK100 or the QK80, even ones like the Shelby 80. Layout options. This will be available in WinKey and WinKeyless options, obviously, for those who care about that type of thing. The back design maintains the minimalist Neo family style with just a solid, no logo weight design. Offered in a multitude of material choices like PVD and copper, and for those looking for a little more pizzazz, you can get the newly introduced stonewash technique. It'll be available in 3 different colors: black, silver, and champagne. Now, there are 2 notable features I want to go over on this board, with the first being the ball catch structure. We did it, boys! Bow, 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 bow. No more pesky screws, yo. You can just press fit the cases together and call it a day. This, with the popular magnetic connector for the PCB, cuts building time to dust. Not all ball catch designs are good though. If not done correctly, you can end up with a pingy case, which isn't the case here. The Neo 80 includes these triangle bumpers and 2 gasket strips on the inside of the case, located here and here. These pieces help stop the resonance created by metal on metal contact, or as the Keep community calls it, case ping. Neo 80's mounting options are impressive. The standard plateless gasket mount and O-ring mount are joined by an upgraded sandwich mount, allowing for multiple sound profiles to really help you dial in the sound that you're trying to achieve. First, we have gasket mount, which uses these little dumbbells that slide into the PCB. This is by far the softest typing experience and probably my preferred route to go, as I like the sound of this one a little bit more than the other options. Option number 2 is the O-ring mount, which uses this rubber O-ring to suspend the PCB and plate on these posts. I would say this is a little more rigid than the gasket mount and definitely has its own sound characteristic. And then there's the third new mount, which is an upgraded sandwich mount, which uses metal standoff to suspend the PCB from the plate. Now, this is probably the stiffest configuration, but it's not stiff by any means. It's kind of more like an upgraded top mount in my opinion. It has all the characteristics of a top mount and essentially is mounted like one, but instead of having to screw the plate onto the top of the case, you kind of just rest it on these posts. And I think this was a great idea by Neo Studios to kind of give us an option that's kind of like top mount with all the hassle of needing to screw the plate onto the case. And going into the gasket sock mount, it's probably my least favorite out of the bunch. It doesn't have as much character as the other options, but if you're into the middle of the road typing experience, then you can definitely choose that. You can also combine mounts, like using the gasket sock with the O-ring mount, or even with the sandwich each mount, but I feel like the changes are so subtle that it's kind of pointless. So enough of the boring stuff, let's just jump into how it all sounds. We'll do all the different mounts without any foam first, just so you can get a feel of how each mounting sounds. And for those looking to buy this as their first custom, I'll go over the sound differences between each piece of foam. Other than plateless, the dumbbell gaskets are the softest in my opinion, and it's my preferred sound profile. The alphas don't change much between the different mounts, but what you really need to pay attention to is the spacebar. With the dumbbell gaskets, the spacebar just sounds cleaner to me and has a nice slap. The closest thing I can think of describing it is that it reminds me of tapping on glass, I guess. But if you like more thump in your spacebar, then you'll probably gravitate towards the O-ring sound. For the O-ring mount, again, alphas don't really change, but they're nice and crisp with no foam. It's really just the spacebar that changes pretty drastically. Feel-wise, it's a bit stiffer than the dumbbell gasket, but still has really good rebound. The sandwich mount sound doesn't really change much from the O-ring mount, but does slightly increase the volume of the board and keeping the thumpy spacebar of the O-ring mount. Feel-wise, the center of the board where the alphas sit are pretty bouncy, and it gets harder as you move towards the edges. It truly reminds me of a top mount board. The gasket sleeve is probably my least favorite, as it's the deepest sounding and the stiffest of the mounts, but that's all just personal preference. If you're looking to build a deep, foamy board with all the foams, this is probably the mount I would recommend to you. Then there's plateless, which is technically the softest, but you're pretty much locked into the gasket mounts when you're going plateless. All the characteristics are the same, except a little more muted since there's no plate for the sound to bounce off of. Plateless can suck in some boards, but this one does it okay. I wouldn't say it was meant for plateless though. And for shits and giggles, here's the board built with a palm plate. And for the next section, we'll go over all the different foams. They were all built with the dumbbell gaskets just to keep more conformity. And let's get right into it. Adding in just the case foam makes the board even more clacky, which was unexpected. And if I were to use a foam configuration in this board, I would probably go for this, if clack was what I was looking for. The plate foam makes the board a little deeper sounding as expected, but not by much. It also retains more flex than the case foam. The switch foam will add more of a marbly texture like all the other switch foams, but doesn't overdo it here like boards in the past. It's a nice subtle change. Then we have all foam, the deepest and poppiest sound, I guess. If this is what you're looking for, you're probably going to go with all the foam. The Neo 80 is thoughtfully designed, highly customizable. Its balance of aesthetic appeal, functional innovation, and customizable options make it a strong contender in the custom keyboard market. I don't really know how much better the budget custom scene can get. The cheapest version you can get is $110. Now that's solder PCB, plateless, spray coat weight. The version I have here is $150, which is more of a realistic price, especially if you want to get the wireless options. But given everything you get here, that is more than fair. And this is peak I think. What else can we really do to push forward? The only direction for it I can see really is incorporating Hall effect switches maybe. There's a big boom of these Wooting 60 clones, and there are only a few designers bringing this to the custom scene, like Melotrix with the Boog 80, and KVD fans with the Taka 60 and the Holy 60. Now those look very promising, and a true gaming / custom keyboard sounds really exciting. And that really seems to be the only frontier left, but that's a whole nother story. But what do you guys think of the Neo 80? You gonna pick one up? Don't like it? Like it? Let me know in the comments below, and yeah. Like and subscribe.